Hey everybody, I'm Brandon Marcelo, 24/7 Sports. I hope you're having a good Monday, February 15th, day after Valentine's Day. Gus Malzahn, former Auburn coach, is headed to UCF. Actually, is already there. Is already landed in Orlando, and is now the next UCF head coach, replacing Josh Heupel, who, of course, most recently had been hired away uh, to coach Tennessee by Danny White, who was hired from UCF, the athletics director. Athletics director hired from UCF to Tennessee, and he brings Josh Heupel with him to Tennessee. Meanwhile, UCF needs an athletics director and a head coach for their football program. So UCF goes to Arkansas State, hires Arkansas State's athletics director, who worked with Gus Malzahn for a year back in 2012. And so that athletics director hires Gus Malzahn. And so the two have reunited in Orlando. I wrote a column about Gus Malzahn and UCF and why this move made a lot of sense for both parties. I started hearing last Tuesday UCF having interest in Gus Malzahn, and Gus Malzahn having interest in UCF for that matter shortly afterward. But Tuesday of last week is when this all kind of started. And so this isn't something that was cobbled together quickly. This is something that's been going on for about 5-6 days, the discussions. So not too surprising to see this happen. I will say that what's going to be interesting is Gus Malzahn, just from a roster perspective, is taking over a roster, loses quite a bit of players from this past season. But he's got a good quarterback, obviously, with Dylan Gabriel. But he's got a lot to replace at the skill positions on offense. What's really going to be interesting to see is who he hires as his defensive coordinator and how he handles those things. I think he'll do very similar to what he did at Auburn in hiring a defensive coordinator and allowing them to make pretty much all the hires on that side of the ball. I saw some people, including I think Cole Kublik of ESPN, saying that there's mutual interest between Travis Williams, the former Auburn linebackers coach and now at Miami, and Gus Malzahn to be the defensive coordinator at UCF. I can tell you that I know that no one has reached out to Travis Williams' side. So I don't know. I don't know. And that might end up happening, but as of right now, there's been no communication between the two parties, so to speak. But on the bigger picture, I would think, and we're going to hear from Gus Malzahn here in about 30 minutes in a press conference, but I would hope for Gus Malzahn's sake that he says, hey, I'm going to do things my way. I'm going to call plays. I'm going to run my offense the way I want it to be ran. No one's going to interfere with me. I've been told that, I can control my own programs. So I'm going to do things my way because certainly there were issues for Gus Malzahn at Auburn that were, tied directly to him in his decision making, particularly in recruiting and on some game day things with coaching. But really, his downfall at Auburn was quite a bit of the hands-on approach of a lot of boosters and power brokers and other people, and trying to get him to hire an offensive coordinator and relinquish control and do all these things after his first 2 to 3 seasons at Auburn. And as soon as that started happening, things were doomed. Not to say there wouldn't be success, because obviously there was success in 2017 and even 2019 to a certain extent by beating Alabama. But, when you tell a coach of any sort or kind to start doing something that they have never really done their entire career, especially when it's something like play calling in which they've built their career on, and you tell them to stop doing that and to move things around, it's not going to work out. you don't tell someone to change. It's like that old thing about people in relationships. Like, you can't change someone in a relationship. So don't stay with someone if you believe that you can change them, because you can't change someone and who they are. And that's kind of what Auburn tried to do. But Auburn tried to do that because they thought they saw some weaknesses in the way Gus Malzahn handled things with his offense and his program. So at UCF, I'm interested to see and hear today what his plans are as far as how he's going to run his program and how he's going to run his offense. Is he going to have an offensive coordinator? Is he going to bring his friend Chad Morris with him? Or is Gus going to be like, hey, listen, I'm going to hire an offensive coordinator maybe, but I'm calling the plays. We're going to do what I want to do. I want to get back to that. I think for what's best for him, he should do that. But what do I know? I'm not him. But that's my thinking on that. And I wrote a little bit more about this, and also just the thought process on Gus Malzahn's side and others of why he is going to UCF and why the timing's right, and how this kind of lines up with Gus Malzahn's past and what he's done with his decisions. Because he's had other job opportunities in the past and he hasn't jumped at them, specifically not because of money, but because of timing, and also whether that program can contend for a championship. In my opinion, in 2017, when he won the SEC West and Arkansas was knocking on his door seeing if he was interested, if Arkansas was in a better position, let's say they were winning 6-7 games and they're only a few years removed from like the Bobby Petrino era when they were winning 9, 10, 11 games, I think he probably would have jumped to Arkansas because they would have been in a better position at the time to maybe contend in the SEC West. But Arkansas was so far in the dumps then, and still is to a certain extent, that there's no way they're going to contend for a championship without him getting fired within 5 years. You're going to need time there, and none of the coaches so far have really gotten that time. Chad Morris was there 2 years, and he was a horrible fit anyway. And I don't think he's cut out to be a head coach, just from what we've seen. But having said that, I'm really interested to see, if Gus Malzahn says, "Hey, this is my baby, and this is what I'm doing," what he says in his press conference today and in the future about what they can do. Because I believe UCF can contend for a national championship and be the first Group of 5 program to play for a national championship, or at least get in the playoff. They'll need some breaks, but UCF, the timing's right for Gus Malzahn to take that job because it's the 6th winningest program in college football since 2017. They win conference titles left and right, and we're at a position now with the playoff where, particularly what's happened with UCF and Cincinnati in recent years, where we're going, okay, it's probably about time we put a Group of 5 team in there. And UCF's got the best facilities. They're the largest school in the country. They're in the best recruiting hotbed in the nation. The timing is right for Gus Malzahn. Gus, when that job came open and they showed interest in Gus, I'm sure was immediately interested because he knows he can not only win conference titles there, he might be able to get in the playoff, or at the very least New Year's Six bowls. And Gus Malzahn, listen, Auburn's only connection to national titles, national championships in the last 20 years is Gus Malzahn, when he was the offensive coordinator in 2010, and of course when he was the head coach in 2013, and when they were in the playoff race in 2017 before they lost the SEC championship game to Georgia. He's their only connection to national championship contention. Not Tommy Tuberville, besides that undefeated season. I know in 2004, but they didn't play for one, and they weren't labeled as one. But when Gus Malzahn's there, they either won one or they played for one. And that was rare. That's something that happens there about every 30 years. And he did it twice in a 4-year period there. And almost did it again in 2017. Gus Malzahn has never had a losing record on the college level, as a coordinator, as a head coach. His only losing season as a coach on any level was his first year as a high school coach at Hughes High School in 1991, I think, or 92. He's won at least a conference title at every single stop during his career, except for his 1 year at Arkansas. But even at that 1 year at Arkansas in 2006, his very first year in college football, they won the SEC West and went to the SEC championship game and very nearly beat the eventual national champions, Florida, that year. So, he has the pedigree, but he's also a guy that's all about timing. He seems to always land at these jobs right at the right moment when they've got a really good roster that he can go in and win with, and then he builds on that. Of course, his latter years at Auburn, his last 2 years particularly, did not really line up with that. There was issues with recruiting, some beyond his control, but a lot of it, he was his control, that led Auburn down the path to where they had to fire him because of the talent and obviously some of the coaching issues they were dealing with there. But UCF, for what they are and the level they play, they're loaded. And he can load up even more there. I believe one of my colleagues, Trey Scott, we were talking this morning about some stuff we were writing about this, planning things out. And it may already be up. I don't know. One of our recruiting writers was writing something about UCF. Josh Heupel never got a commitment from a 4-star player, let alone a 5-star player at UCF. Maybe Gus Malzahn could do that. He can get 4-star guys at UCF because of his name. He can go, hey, listen, look at this national championship ring. Look at these SEC championship rings I've got. Maybe he can do that. But that's a lot of that is also going to depend on who he hires as his assistant coaches. But I think it's an incredible hire for UCF. And a lot of people are out there making the argument that Tennessee and UCF got the better end of the deal here. Josh Heupel left, and then they ended up getting Gus Malzahn, a guy who's coached for national championships and coached in the SEC and beat Alabama 3 times when no one else has been able to. So it's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, thanks for joining me here in the chat. Let's see if we can answer any questions or just have a conversation here. Hey, D-Boy, what's going on? What's up, John? What is up? Auburn fans wondering if they can get Bo Nix to leave now. Wow, their quarterback. They're I'm not going to say anything on that. Gus bringing the whole crew from Auburn with him, like Chad or Kevin. I don't know. I mean, if Kevin still wants to coach again and he expressed interest to Gus, maybe Gus would be interested. The other issue here for UCF, and maybe it's not really a big issue now because they're actually getting money from Tennessee for hiring Josh Heupel. But UCF has Randy Shannon under contract still. He was defensive coordinator. And I think his buyout's like $1 million or something like that, which is pretty substantial for a coordinator on that level. But you'd almost want to keep him around because, one, I think he's a good coach. But two, that guy is a great recruiter and has so many ties in the state of Florida. So why wouldn't you keep him around? Maybe just make him the defensive coordinator. I don't know. But there's talk about Travis Williams, but as of right now, at this hour, there's been no contact between Travis Williams and Gus Malzahn's party. UCF plays Boise State their first game next season. A little ironic. That's not the definition of irony, is it? But, yeah. Bryan Harsin, now the Auburn coach, was at Boise State. Now Gus is at UCF. I don't know. Everything's connected. Time is a flat circle, especially in college football. Let's be real. If UCF ever wants to move up to a Power 5, they need a legitimate coach and one that has credentials. I don't know about like moving up, like joining a different conference. I don't know about that. Like you just need a legitimate coach. There's more to it than that. It's about school size, facilities, your brand, your national brand, and then also, really television markets. And it's Orlando, so it's a good spot. It's a great spot. It's the best power. It's the best group of 5 job there is. Let's be frank. It's a lot easier to sell Power 5 on a consistent coach than a programs whose coach leaves every 2 years. That's correct. Yeah. No contact between Twin Oak and Gus that you know of. LOL. There has been no contact as of an hour ago. There has been no contact. I can tell you that with confidence. Man, that's all I can say. I mean that's obviously could have changed, but that an hour ago, no, there have been no contact. So any other questions, guys? Any other conversations you guys want to have here? Otherwise, that's pretty much my take on the entire situation. It's great, great timing for Gus Malzahn. Obviously, listen, he was going to set out the year, um, unless some like Power 5 job that was interesting to him came open, and this pretty much is a Power 5 job, and it's obviously a group of 5, but it's a group of 5 school, much like Cincinnati. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 programs you say in the group of 5 that would are national brands that could potentially get into the conversation of being talked about every week nationally. UCF's definitely one of them, thanks to coaches like Scott Frost, who was there previously and got them to an undefeated season in 2017 and led to them claiming a national championship. But this is as good of a job as you can hope for after being fired at a Power 5 gig. Because, yeah, sure, you can go get a Power 5 job, maybe get paid more like at a, let's say like Iowa State was open or something like that, or, Illinois or something like that, or Arizona. But those are not programs that are built, and especially right now built roster wise, to contend to give them for a conference title. UCF is built to contend for a conference title and maybe even more. So, and it's got much better facilities than a lot of those other programs, even some Power 5. Drunk Ollie, will you hate Gus's new school as much as you hate his previous? Yes, sure. You guys know just how much I hated Auburn. Any coordinators you think Gus rehires at UCF from Auburn? I don't know. A lot of those guys, several of them already got other jobs. Rodney Garner, of course, at Tennessee. I mean, Kevin Steele could certainly just sit out. I mean, Gus and Kevin Steele aren't necessarily best of friends. I don't see that happening. Uh, Maybe Travis Williams, maybe Cody Burns, but I don't know. It's interesting. Cody Burns went to UCF to coach for Josh Heupel. Then Josh Heupel went to Tennessee, and then he got hired, and so Cody Burns followed him to Tennessee. But maybe he could potentially go to UCF now under Gus. I don't know. I think Gus is going to go a different direction there. I would think, and I don't know if Cody would want to leave Tennessee at this point. Um, Other people, maybe Chad Morris, because no one's going to touch Chad Morris right now unless he's like an analyst somewhere. Maybe. But I'm very interested to watch and see who he ends up hiring for his staff. Um, I think Jack Becknell is still out there. Maybe he could be the offensive line coach after after only being at Auburn for a year. Um, you know, but most of these guys that he would even bring would probably be offensive guys, except for maybe T. Will. But but I don't know. I think T. Will would have to be the coordinator for him to leave Miami. T. Will is now at Miami, as you guys know, as a linebackers coach. Do you think Gus has any resentment to Auburn? I mean, maybe a little. I don't know. But $21 million certainly softens that, and you get a job somewhere else. That's the thing, number one. Gus just wants to work and contend for championships. I mean, obviously he's getting a lot of money, and his agent's working wonders with that, but it's never really been about money for him. Could any Auburn players transfer? Yeah, I mean, they can do whatever they want. You can enter the portal and leave whenever you want. It's just about whether UCF's got the space and whether Gus would want them. No pressure at that school. No, I think there's pressure at UCF. Yeah, maybe Herb Hand to UCF. Him and Gus are good buddies. Herb Hand, of course, was the offensive line coach at Auburn for a couple of years before he left for Texas, and then that thing fell apart. That's a possibility. Herb Hand has not had a very good reputation, though, for the last 5 or so years since he left Penn State. As a developer of offensive line talent and as a recruiter, for that matter, hasn't done very well. Bo Pelini's available. Oh man, I don't know about that. I think his days are done as a Power 5 guy, but I might be mistaken. Auburn messed up hiring Harsin, says Auburn man. Wow, okay. UCF run more than 6 plays. Will Gus ever get back to the SEC? I mean, it's possible. I don't know what UCF's record will be. They got a lot of things to replace at skill positions. They got a good quarterback, and they've done a good job recruiting, even though they haven't gotten 4 stars. I mean, it's on a different level. They'll be playing on a different level. So, all right, guys, I'm going to jet. Thanks for joining me. Gus Malzahn's having a press conference at UCF at 1 o'clock Central Time. I'm going to try and jump on that, see what he has to say, ask a question, hopefully. And, yeah, I'm going to go check that out. You guys have a good rest of your Monday. I know most of the country is just getting pounded by this winter weather. I know where I'm at is severely cold. It's like minus 25 wind chills. Can't even go outside. It's so cold. And, of course, snowing and everything. So everybody be safe out there. It's very, very bitter out there in most of the country with this weather. So be careful. Be very careful out there. So, anyway, follow me on Twitter at bmarcello. Instagram, I'm much more active on Instagram now. Got a lot of stuff going on there at Brandon Marcello. And, of course, go to 247sports.com for much more coverage on all things college football and recruiting. So, until next time, I will see you down the road.